Good evening, and welcome to Late Night Science, where the world grows quieter, the mind softens, and the universe opens itself one gentle layer at a time. Tonight, we settle into the beginning of a long green story, a story that drifts through oceans, sunlight, and the earliest breaths of life. Plants can't run, can't hide, yet they've survived for millions of years. How do they keep winning the battle for life without ever moving an inch? Before we begin, take a moment to arrive. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the air fall softly in and out of you. And, if you'd like, let us know where you're listening from tonight. Whether it's a quiet bedroom, a dim dorm room, or the soft glow of a screen in a distant corner of the world. And if you feel comfortable, gently like and subscribe. It supports this calm little space we're building together. And to all of you who already have, thank you for keeping this channel alive with your quiet presence. Now we drift backward, far beyond forests and flowers, into a time when Earth was a young, unsettled world wrapped in water and silence. In those ancient oceans, light fell in long, trembling strands, reaching into the dimness like a memory searching for a surface. And within that muted glow, tiny cells floated, fragile and unassuming, almost unaware that they were on the edge of a discovery that would transform everything the planet would ever become. These early cells were simple, soft-walled beings with no sense of the future, no sense of the vast green empire waiting to unfold from their small experiments. They drifted with the currents, carried by waves rather than intentions. Yet each time sunlight brushed against them, something subtle stirred. Molecules shivered, pigments absorbed faint gold. A quiet possibility awakened. From this possibility, photosynthesis would slowly emerge, the astonishing ability to borrow energy from the sun, to translate radiance into survival, to turn light into the simplest breath of life. Imagine that moment as a shift so gentle it would be invisible if we could watch it now. No flash, no rush, just a delicate reorganization in the cell's inner world, a slight rebalancing that allowed sunlight to become nourishment. The ocean around them remained calm, unaware that the chemistry of its future had changed. But inside those tiny pioneers, a new rhythm began, one that would echo through every leaf, every forest, every field billions of years later. And yet, none of this happened quickly. Evolution is patient, slow as dusk settling over a quiet landscape. These early cells tested their new relationship with the sun in tiny steps, adjusting pigments, refining reactions, strengthening the fragile machinery that let them store the energy they gathered. Each improvement whispered forward into time, forming patterns that would one day become the signature of all plant life. The world was already turning toward green, even though no one was there to see it. As these cells multiplied, the ocean itself began to change. Sunlight-powered life released oxygen, at first in silent, microscopic breaths, then in greater streams that filled the water and drifted upward into the sky. The atmosphere grew clearer, gentler, more welcoming to future life. Without any intention, these simple organisms reshaped the world, laying the foundation for everything that would come next. They did this while staying small, staying quiet, staying soft. In their stillness, they altered the fate of the planet, and perhaps that is one of the first lessons plants offer us. That transformation does not always require movement. That impact does not always require force. Sometimes the world is changed by those who stay rooted, who listen, who adapt in slow, deliberate ways. The first breath of green was not a shout. It was a whisper expanding patiently across time. If you picture those early oceans now, imagine the faint green glow spreading like a dream, pigment by pigment, cell by cell. Picture the surface of the water shimmering with a new kind of life, a life that reached toward light, not with limbs or hunger, but with quiet acceptance. Light arrived, and the cells opened themselves to it. That gesture would become the heart of every leaf that has ever unfolded. And as we rest here together tonight, drifting in thought, you might feel the strange comfort of knowing that all the forests, All the meadows, all the gardens you have ever walked through began with beings so small they could barely hold themselves together. Their survival was not heroic. It was humble, it was slow, it was steady, and in that steadiness, they found a way to endure. So, as we close this first chapter, breathe gently and imagine that ancient sea, the soft light falling, the tiny cells awakening to a new kind of energy. In their fragile beginnings, they carried the seeds of a green world that would one day surround you. And perhaps the quiet question they leave us with is this: what might unfold in your life when you simply turn toward the light? And maybe, as you settle deeper into the night, you can feel a small echo of that ancient moment within yourself, a reminder that even gentle beginnings can reshape entire landscapes, and that every quiet choice to grow, no matter how small, becomes part of a much larger, unfolding story. Here, in the dim hush of an ancient ocean, the world feels suspended between breath and stillness, as if the planet itself is drifting in a long, slow dream beneath the newborn sun. The water is thick with minerals, drifting sediments, and the faint shimmer of life too small to see with any clarity. And yet, if you let your imagination settle into this quiet blue expanse, you can almost sense the presence of tiny pigments, scattered like drifting embers, waiting for a chance to capture the faint warmth falling from above. Light does not arrive in abundance here. It slips downward in thin columns, softening as it sinks, separating into fragile hues that dissolve into the deeper dark. But in the shallows, where sunlight still carries some of its original brightness, living cells hover like patient listeners, sensing a quiet invitation in each passing photon. These early organisms are simple, far simpler than anything we now call a plant, but they carry within them a delicate arrangement of molecules capable of something extraordinary. Inside their membranes lie pigments, molecules shaped in subtle ways that let them hold light for just a moment longer than the water around them. Chlorophyll is not yet the dominant pigment. Instead, a mosaic of ancestral light-harvesting molecules glows in faint reds and greens, each one absorbing the gentle touch of the sun. When a photon meets a pigment molecule, something changes, not with violence, but with a soft reorganization of electrons, a transfer of energy so small and silent that the ocean does not notice. But the cell notices. The cell begins to find a pattern in the light. At first, this energy is fleeting, difficult to stabilize, difficult to use. The earliest versions of photosynthesis are clumsy, patchwork systems that allow cells to gather bits of energy but not yet transform their environment. But evolution does not rush. It listens, it waits, it tries again and again with tiny variations. With each generation, pigments shift, reaction centers refine themselves, and molecular pathways grow more efficient. Slowly, the cells begin to store sunlight's energy as chemical energy, weaving new molecules from the raw materials around them. They use carbon dioxide dissolved in the water, combine it with electrons stolen from simple compounds, and begin crafting sugars. The first internal reserves of fuel. This delicate pattern will one day define the green world. But here, in these early oceans, its perfection is still far away. Even so, these tentative reactions begin to reshape the chemistry of the water. With time, certain lineages of microorganisms stumble upon an innovation so transformative that it becomes one of the greatest evolutionary steps in Earth's history. Using water as the source of electrons. Water is abundant, stable, everywhere, but breaking it apart requires energy and precision. Yet these cells find a way, constructing a small, shimmering structure known now as photosystem 2. A molecular machine capable of splitting water molecules and capturing the liberated electrons to fuel their internal reactions. The consequence of this is subtle at first. Each time water is split, oxygen is released. A single bubble here, a single molecule there, rising slowly toward the surface. No creature of that era pays attention to this oxygen, for it is merely a trace component of the ocean's chemistry. But as millions of these simple cells bloom and divide and drift through the sunlit waters, the small exhalations accumulate. Oxygen begins to increase, a trickle growing into a persistent whisper. And over unimaginable spans of time, this whisper becomes a quiet revolution. The ocean starts to change. Minerals that were once soluble begin to oxidize, falling out of solution and settling on the seafloor in rusty layers. The sky begins to shift as oxygen escapes the water and rises into the atmosphere, reacting, stabilizing, transforming. Slowly, the blue haze of Earth's early air gains a new clarity, and the ozone layer begins to form high above, protecting the surface from harsh ultraviolet light. All of this unfolds with a patience so deep it feels like meditation, a transformation not driven by speed, but by countless repetitions of the same quiet chemical gesture. If we drift closer to one of these cells, we might imagine the internal choreography playing out with each passing moment. Pigments absorb light, electrons shift, membranes funnel the energy into tiny metabolic currents, sugars form and dissolve, waste gases escape. Everything happens in silence. No cell knows the scale of what it is contributing to. No lineage understands that it is rewriting the destiny of the planet. They simply continue, generation after generation, refining the machinery of photosynthesis with gentle precision. As oxygen rises, new possibilities appear. Life that once depended on anaerobic chemistry begins to encounter the strange reactive presence of this new gas. Many organisms cannot tolerate it, and their populations shrink into dark, oxygen-free refuges. Others adapt, building new pathways to handle the stress, and some, more adventurous, eventually learn to use oxygen itself as a source of energy, unlocking the power of respiration. But all of these stories lie in the future. For now, we remain in the ancient ocean, watching as the slow accumulation of oxygen begins to carve the world into a new shape. There is a kind of poetry in this process, a reminder that profound change often arrives through the smallest, quietest steps. These early cells never move more than the currents allow, never seek to dominate, never compete for territory in the ways future organisms will. They simply drift, absorbing sunlight, releasing oxygen, repeating a pattern that feels almost like breathing. And with every repetition, they bring the planet a little closer to the world we know. If you picture Earth at this stage from far above, you might see the water's surface shimmering with hints of life, delicate blooms of pigment that pulse gently with the rhythm of the sun. With each dawn, photons scatter into the sea, feeding tiny cells that turn them into energy, structure, possibility. With each dusk, the ocean exhales, carrying traces of oxygen upward. The planet's story is being rewritten, not by forceful movements or dramatic events, but by the cumulative effect of quiet persistence. As the next time you breathe deeply, filling your lungs with air that feels soft and familiar, you might remember that this simple act is a gift from ancient oceans and humble pigments. They worked in silence for millions of years, each photon gathered, each oxygen molecule released, shaping a world where breathing became possible. And perhaps, as you settle into the night, you can feel a quiet connection to that long, patient story, a reminder that even the faintest embers of life can reshape a planet, one whisper of sunlight at a time. Here, in the gentle cradle of early oceans, life begins to explore the quiet power of togetherness. A single cell, once drifting alone in the faintly lit water, divides, creating a mirror of itself, a twin that sways alongside in the subtle currents. Each division is a slow, deliberate unfolding, a soft repetition of a pattern that will one day echo across every forest and meadow, every leaf and root. The two cells, still separate and independent, begin to sense a mutual benefit in proximity, a warmth in shared space, and gradually, through countless cycles of division and alignment, Small clusters of cells form like lace stitched by invisible hands. There is no grand design, no conscious intention. There is only the gentle logic of survival, the subtle advantage that comes from clinging together, from cooperating, from drifting as a unit rather than alone. In this quiet alliance, we see the first whispers of multicellularity, a soft revolution that will redefine the possibilities of life on Earth. Each new cluster bends and folds in response to its environment, moving in patterns dictated not by thought, but by the water, the light, the chemical gradients that surround them. Some cells adhere more strongly, forming a slight curve here, a delicate fold there, creating primitive structures that give stability in the currents. Others remain loosely attached, floating like fine threads, testing the waters, sensing what arrangements work best, which formations persist and which dissolve back into the solitary life of the single cell. It is a slow dance, patient and rhythmic, repeated across countless generations. In this patient repetition, structure emerges, not from ambition, not from an external plan, but from the accumulated wisdom of survival. Patterns of adhesion, of division, of arrangement, ripple through time, each small success copied, refined, and passed along in a silent, invisible memory. As the clusters grow larger, new possibilities unfold. Cells at the surface begin to intercept sunlight more efficiently, shading their neighbors below in ways that encourage differentiation, specialization, subtle roles within the group. Some become protective layers, others become conduits for resources, while still others gather and process energy more efficiently. It is the first step toward division of labor, toward the complex tissues that will one day make forests possible. And yet, these beginnings are humble, small, unassuming. There is no rush. The ocean is patient, and the cells follow its quiet rhythm, expanding slowly, testing new forms, finding balance in gentle curvature, in soft bonding, in cooperative alignment. The first multicellular plants drift like lace across the water's surface, fragile and intricate, their forms traced by the soft light filtering from above, their edges trembling slightly in the ceaseless movement of the waves. In these early assemblages, every cell is attuned to the survival of the whole, and yet the whole is not conscious. It is a pattern, a system, a quiet agreement forged in the language of adhesion and chemical signaling. Signals pass between cells, not with sound or thought, but with subtle changes in the surrounding medium, with gradients of ions and molecules that carry information across tiny distances. A cell that senses a shift in light or nutrient availability adjusts its behavior, and its neighbors adjust in turn. Through these interactions, coordination emerges naturally, effortlessly, like a calm current shaping a sandbar beneath the waves. The multicellular organism is not a command center or ruler. It is a living pattern, a flowing entity composed of many smaller parts acting in concert, guided by simple rules and the constant feedback of the environment. Imagine these organisms floating just beneath the water's surface, each cluster catching the sunlight in delicate mosaics, each fold and curve designed by millions of generations of trial, error, and quiet selection. The water glows faintly green with their presence, pigments shimmering like embers in a slow, undulating rhythm, reflecting and refracting light across surfaces. Each cell within the cluster is both independent and inseparable, contributing to the survival of the whole while still maintaining the faint, glimmering identity of itself. There is an elegance here that belies the simplicity of the components, a reminder that complexity can emerge from repetition, from cooperation, from a patient willingness to align with neighbors and with the currents of the world around them. And yet, for all their stillness, these early multicellular organisms are not static. They bend and twist with the flow of the ocean, expanding in the direction of light, curling toward regions of higher nutrients, subtly adjusting the angles of their cells to maximize energy capture. Their movements are slow, almost imperceptible, but persistent, accumulating over hours, days, and seasons into forms that are both functional and graceful. In their patient motion, they embody the principle that survival is not about haste or aggression, but about adaptation, about finding harmony with the environment, about learning to exist as part of a larger, interconnected whole. It is the quiet logic of life itself, unfolding gently in a world without urgency. As we imagine these drifting green laceworks, we can also see how this cooperation sets the stage for the future. From these humble, aligned clusters will eventually emerge structures capable of standing upright, of reaching beyond the water, of building tissues and organs that support more complex interactions with the world. But at this moment, the focus is simple: hold together, survive, gather light, divide, and repeat. Each cell's small success contributes to the resilience of the cluster, and each cluster's persistence shapes the chemical and physical environment of the ocean itself. The ocean, once empty and indifferent, becomes a nursery, a canvas upon which life sketches its first cooperative forms, subtle and beautiful in their deliberate stillness. There is a philosophical rhythm in this process that mirrors our own experiences. Life is strengthened not always by individual brilliance, but by the soft, patient alignment of many small actors, each attending to its own needs while responding to the needs of the collective. There is a lesson here in quiet persistence, in the gentle art of coexistence, in the surprising strength that emerges when organisms, and perhaps we ourselves, learn to stay together. The first multicellular plants do not boast. They do not compete loudly. They do not even recognize that they are creating something new. They simply follow the quiet imperatives of life, and in doing so, they open doors to possibilities that had never existed before. It is a story of patience, humility, and subtle triumph, written in the language of cells and currents, pigment and light. And so, as we drift through this scene together, imagine the early ocean alive with lace-like multicellular forms, shimmering faintly in the filtered sunlight, bending with the waves, holding each other gently, moving as one without haste or awareness. Consider the quiet significance of this cooperation, the invisible network of support and alignment that allows life to persist, adapt, and transform over time. And perhaps, as you settle into the rhythm of your own night, you can carry with you the reflection of this ancient collaboration, a reminder that strength is often found not in isolation, but in the patient, deliberate act of staying together, of lending support, of quietly existing in harmony. For in these drifting cells, small yet profound, we witness the first gentle proof that cooperation is one of the greatest engines of life, that structure and possibility arise not from ambition, but from soft, attentive alignment, and that even the simplest forms, moving together, can change the trajectory of an entire world. We begin this chapter by letting our minds drift to the edges of the ancient seas, where water laps softly against the first tentative shores, a boundary neither fully home nor entirely unknown. Here, life senses an invitation, a whisper carried on the warmth of the sun and the gentle pull of gravity, asking whether something more is possible. Small, adventurous cells, algae and their kin, drift toward this new frontier, drawn not by ambition, but by the quiet logic of survival. Each inch of movement into the moist land is a delicate gamble, a negotiation with an environment harsher than the familiar ocean currents, where light no longer diffuses evenly through water, and dryness can bite at their fragile surfaces. And yet, some of these pioneers cling to the rocks, anchor themselves in mud, and begin the slow experiment of living where liquid support is no longer guaranteed. It is a patient, careful advance, almost imperceptible in the scale of time, yet monumental in its consequence. These early explorers of land face the sun directly, unfiltered and intense, yet they are not scorched. They are instead compelled to respond, to adapt in subtle ways. Their cell walls thicken imperceptibly at first, forming a gentle barrier that holds moisture like a soft shield. Pigments grow denser, capable of absorbing light while shielding delicate interiors from harmful radiation. Each adaptation is like a small, deliberate gesture, written slowly into their physical forms over countless generations. The rhythm is quiet, unhurried, a constant negotiation with the environment, in which survival depends less on haste and more on the careful calibration of every molecular interaction, every structural reinforcement, every pulse of energy absorbed from the sun. These tiny algae, now half in water and half in air, embody a fragile balance between two worlds, one that will become the blueprint for every plant that ever climbs beyond the ocean. Gravity, an invisible sculptor, begins to shape their forms. In water, buoyancy has always supported life, softening the demands of structure and strength. On land, there is no such support, and so tissues must thicken. Cells align, fibers develop, walls gain rigidity, creating a nascent architecture that allows these small pioneers to resist collapse. Each tissue is a response to an unseen pressure, each strengthening a quiet conversation with the ground beneath them and the air above. Even the tiniest leaf-like protrusion is a negotiation, a gesture of compromise and hope, testing how much sun can be absorbed without losing precious moisture. And in these subtle negotiations, we witness the first whispers of true terrestrial form, a foreshadowing of the forests, meadows, and grasslands that will one day stretch across continents. Moisture remains the constant companion, dripping from waves or rain, coating surfaces and softening the shock of this new environment. Without it, these algae would shrivel, returning to the safety of water. With it, they persist, and slowly, across generations, evolution experiments in small increments. Some forms develop the ability to retain water more effectively. Others adjust pigments to tolerate stronger sunlight. Still others modify their cell chemistry to prevent desiccation. Every alteration is minor, but in the aggregate, these small changes lay the foundation for survival on land. It is a lesson in patient persistence, a reminder that resilience often begins not with a dramatic leap, but with quiet, incremental adjustments to the pressures and possibilities of the world. And yet, there is something profoundly poetic in this slow migration. The shore is both threshold and mirror, reflecting the potential of life while demanding humility. Algae that drift too far or too fast perish. Those that cling, adapt, and persist open pathways for future generations. Each tiny form that survives writes into the earth a legacy of experimentation and endurance, a delicate record of possibility. We can almost see these early pioneers shimmering faintly under the direct sunlight, green against the browns and greys of mud and rock, each movement toward light a gentle, deliberate choice. They are small, yet significant, fragile, yet unyielding, experimental, yet precise. Their quiet labor is the first chorus in the long song of terrestrial life. Pigments deepen in response to this new exposure, drawing in the sun's energy and converting it into fuel, not in sudden bursts, but in slow, measured rhythms. Chlorophyll, carotenoids, and other compounds collaborate in a delicate dance, balancing absorption with protection, capturing the light without letting it overwhelm. Every molecule contributes to a pattern of survival, a subtle choreography written over millennia. And as these pioneers continue to spread along the shoreline, cells divide and fold, form clusters, and begin to create primitive tissues that resemble the first hints of leaves and stems. These structures are not yet strong, not yet complex, but they represent a quiet victory over a new set of challenges, a soft affirmation that life, given opportunity, will explore, adapt, and endure. Gravity and light shape not just physical structure, but strategy. Forms that orient themselves to capture sunlight most efficiently survive, while others fade away, unnoticed and unmissed. Water, still present in pores and droplets, becomes a teacher, guiding the allocation of tissues, pigments, and internal spaces. And with each iteration, algae become something more than drifting cells. They become early plants, organisms capable of inhabiting both wet and dry worlds, organisms that stretch beyond their immediate surroundings in search of resources, light, and stability. The leap onto land is thus not a single event, but a continuous negotiation between opportunity and limitation, between exposure and protection, between curiosity and restraint. If we pause and imagine this moment, we can see an ocean of tiny green pioneers drifting at the edge of land, half supported by water, half challenged by gravity, illuminated by direct sunlight. They are small, shimmering mosaics of adaptation, yet their influence will ripple forward through time. The subtle changes they make: cell walls thickened, pigments deepened, tissues formed will define the blueprint for every terrestrial plant that follows. There is no drama in this scene, no tension that demands resolution. There is only the patient, inevitable unfolding of possibility. A slow-motion portrait of life learning to step gently into new territory. And as you listen now, drifting with the rhythm of the night and the cadence of your own breath, consider the quiet courage it takes to move into the unknown, to test conditions beyond comfort, to adapt in ways both small and deliberate. The algae at the shoreline are not conscious of risk or reward, yet they embody the principles of resilience, persistence, and innovation. Each generation carries forward the adaptations of the previous, layer upon layer, a delicate accumulation that allows survival where once it was impossible. It is a lesson that stretches beyond biology, reaching into the ways life, and perhaps we ourselves, respond to new challenges, through patience, through attention, through subtle adjustments made over time. So as the night deepens and you settle into stillness, imagine the ancient shore alive with tiny green forms, their tissues thickening, their pigments deepening, their structures stretching, bending, and folding under the sun's unfiltered glow. They drift with purpose, but without haste, exploring possibilities and surviving quietly, one small adjustment at a time. And perhaps, as you close your eyes and breathe slowly, you might ponder the quiet question left by this ancient migration. Was this step onto land a risk, a gamble against the harshness of exposure, or a gentle invitation from the earth itself, calling life to grow beyond the familiar tides, to reach toward sunlight, and to begin the long, patient story of plants that will one day shape every continent, every garden, and every leaf you touch? Beneath the quiet green surface of the earliest land plants, a hidden revolution begins, one that is as slow as thought and as deliberate as the rise of dawn. The first roots push downward into soil still unfamiliar, seeking water, minerals, and the stability that only firm contact with the earth can provide. These pioneering roots move with patience, not urgency, curving and stretching with subtle awareness of the resistance of soil particles, sensing the faint currents of moisture, the gentle pull of gravity, and the chemical whispers of nutrients. Each tip extends like a quiet question, probing for possibility, exploring the hidden spaces that lie beyond sight. And every small elongation represents an experiment in survival, an adaptation to a world both supporting and challenging, both nourishing and indifferent. Roots do not grow in isolation. Each branch that extends downward communicates, not through words, but through molecular signals carried across cells and tissues, chemical pulses that tell the plant where to strengthen, where to branch, and where to hold back. The network that develops is delicate, invisible to the casual eye, yet it is profoundly intelligent in its persistence, adjusting itself continuously in response to moisture gradients, mineral availability, and subtle variations in soil density. We might imagine these subterranean networks as the silent conversation of the earth itself, roots listening to the soil, sensing its moods and its textures, responding in ways that ensure both survival and resilience. This quiet dialogue between plant and earth is the beginning of a deep partnership, one that will shape ecosystems, influence climates, and set the stage for forests, fields, and all the green life that comes later. As roots extend, they create more than mere support. Their growth reshapes the soil, stabilizing surfaces, creating microcanals for water, aerating spaces for microbial life, and establishing the first intricate architecture of terrestrial life. Tiny fungi begin to attach, forming symbiotic relationships, exchanging nutrients in subtle transactions that have been perfected over millions of years. Minerals and water move along these living pathways, guided by pressure, chemistry, and the plant's own demands. In this silent cooperation, there is both efficiency and elegance. The plant nourishes the soil even as the soil nourishes the plant. A slow, reciprocal rhythm that quietly transforms the very ground beneath our feet. Each root is a testament to endurance and adaptability, a reminder that strength often lies not in force, but in persistence, in connection, in patience. In some places, roots reach deeply, seeking stability in bedrock or dense clay, while others spread laterally, exploring wide networks just beneath the surface. Each decision is unconscious, yet profoundly consequential. Deep roots anchor against storms, erosion, and the pull of gravity, while shallow roots capture fleeting rainfall and form webs of connection with neighboring plants. Over time, these systems intertwine, creating subterranean forests of communication, where signals travel like whispers from one organism to another. A drought in one patch of soil may send chemical warnings along these threads, prompting adjustments in growth and metabolism far from the original stress. The root's quiet architecture allows life above ground to flourish, creating a symphony of interdependence hidden beneath the soil. Invisible yet indispensable, we might imagine peering into this dark world, where the air is absent, where light is swallowed by layers of earth. Yet life pulses with astonishing vibrancy. Root hairs extend like tiny fingers, increasing surface area, maximizing contact with water and minerals, and facilitating exchanges with microbes and fungi that are equally essential to survival. Each cellular extension carries within it both physical and chemical knowledge, where to branch, how to grow around obstacles, when to conserve energy. The soil, in its complexity, is no longer just an inert substrate. It is a dynamic medium, responsive and interactive, shaped by roots even as it shapes them. The architecture of staying is thus both defensive and generative, a patient framework of support that allows green life to reach towards sunlight while remaining anchored in the nourishing darkness beneath. Roots are not only structures of survival, but also pathways of memory. Signals sent along their networks carry information about past conditions, environmental stresses, and encounters with microbes. Nutrient deficiencies trigger adjustments that persist, guiding future growth. Pathogens met in one zone may prompt chemical fortifications in another. In this way, the roots embody a quiet intelligence, a history of experience encoded in the branching, weaving, and elongating forms. Each root is at once alive and reflective, responding to the present while remembering the past, creating a network that is both practical and temporal, structural and contemplative. In their silence, roots tell a story of patience, endurance, and attentive adaptation that few ever notice, yet that sustains all the green life above. As roots explore, the plant above ground can expand its leaves toward sunlight, confident in the stability provided below. Each root system is a foundation not just in a physical sense, but in a temporal one. It allows life to reach higher, to spread farther, and to endure longer than it could if it were unnatured. There is a slow poetry to this process, a rhythm that mirrors the breathing of life itself. The leaves draw light and carbon, sugars are transported downward, and roots distribute nutrients where they are needed most. It is a quiet flow of energy and information, invisible to the eye but essential to existence. a reminder that what happens beneath the surface often shapes the visible world more profoundly than anything above. And so, as we drift together through this ancient landscape, imagine roots winding silently through the soil, twisting, branching, probing, responding to subtle cues that guide their growth. Picture the chemical signals, the microbial exchanges, the mechanical resistance of particles, the gentle pull of gravity, all orchestrating a slow, patient unfolding of structure and stability. Each root is a testament to the power of staying grounded, of listening to the environment, and of moving forward without haste or spectacle. Beneath our feet, networks of cooperation, communication, and adaptation spread invisibly, quietly supporting the lush complexity above, reminding us that resilience and intelligence often reside in what cannot be seen. As night deepens and your attention drifts, consider this quiet subterranean world, its labyrinthine passages, its patient experiments, its invisible yet essential networks. The roots of the earliest plants hold lessons not only for survival, but for connection, for endurance, and for subtle influence over time. In their careful, deliberate growth, we glimpse the profound truth that stability and persistence, when paired with openness and responsiveness, can shape landscapes, ecosystems, and even the air we breathe. They are architects of staying, and their work continues unseen, weaving the very foundation of life for all that follows. And perhaps, as you rest, you can ponder the silent stories beneath your own feet. What wisdom, what connections, what quiet forces might be guiding growth and endurance in ways that are hidden yet powerful, shaping every living thing that reaches toward the light. From the darkness of roots, life begins to assert a gentle upward insistence, a quiet rebellion against gravity that neither shouts nor struggles, but rises with measured determination. The first stems emerge, tender columns of green reaching from soil to light, carrying with them not only water, but the memory of rainfall, the subtle chemical traces of life-giving moisture. Gravity, patient and unwavering, pours downward with every drop. Yet these early stems answer with a slow, persistent motion, elongating, thickening, and branching in a rhythm dictated by sunlight, internal pressure, and cellular cooperation. Every millimeter of growth is both fragile and deliberate, an experiment in the vertical world that will one day support forests and meadows, jungles and gardens. Yet begins now as a tentative expression of possibility. In this slow ascent, we witness a quiet miracle, a negotiation between force and resilience, between challenge and adaptation, a dance performed in stillness. The construction of stems is a testament to balance, to the interplay of structure and fluidity. Hollow columns of xylem form within the tender tissue, conduits capable of lifting water, nutrients, and mineral memories from roots below to leaves above. Phloem threads, thinner and softer, carry sugars and signals downward, creating a continuous circulation of energy, information, and life. It is a symphony of transport, silent yet unceasing, a network refined over millions of generations to perform with precision and subtlety. Each cell contributes to the whole, elongating in response to pressure, thickening in response to strain, dividing and reinforcing in patterns that maintain stability while allowing flexibility. Gravity is constant, yet the plant's vertical architecture is not rigid. It is patient, responsive, adaptive, moving in harmony with the forces it cannot escape. It can negotiate with care. We might imagine standing at the edge of an ancient forest of stems, each tender shoot reaching upward into the unfiltered sunlight, each branch bending slightly in response to wind and rain. The water that rises within them tells a story, a memory of the rainfall that nourished the roots, a chronicle of the soil it passed through, a journey recorded in the chemistry of the xylem. In this way, the plant carries the history of its environment upward, a vertical diary of survival and adaptation written in fluid and cell walls. leads above respond to this supply, capturing photons in pigments that shimmer faintly with the filtered green of early chlorophyll, transforming light into sugars, sustaining growth, and sending chemical messages back down toward roots and stem tissues. The vertical ascent is thus both physical and informational, a conduit not only for matter but for memory, a slow, deliberate communication with the world. Each stem negotiates the tension between rigidity and flexibility, learning how to withstand wind, rain, and the subtle shifts of the earth beneath. Cells differentiate into supportive fibers, into conductive tubes, into storage tissues, each fulfilling its role with quiet precision. Over generations, this specialization becomes more sophisticated, allowing plants to rise higher without collapsing, to capture more light without sacrificing stability, to create a scaffold for the complexity that will later define forests and groves. And yet, despite all the sophistication, the process is gentle, imperceptible, patient. There is no hurry, no dramatic leap, only the slow elongation, the gradual thickening, the patient negotiation with forces both internal and external, performed in silence and perseverance. Imagine for a moment a single stem stretching upward from a moist shoreline or a forest floor, its tip breaking into open air, each cell working as part of an intricate chorus to balance water transport, structural integrity, and growth toward light. There is a rhythm here that mirrors life itself. Tension and release, input and output, absorption and distribution. Water poured from the roots carries more than molecules. It carries the echo of the rain, the minerals gathered, the resilience of the soil, every particle a quiet reminder of the plant's connection to the larger environment. This vertical world, once inaccessible, becomes a stage for survival, a place where subtle architecture enables expansion, exploration, and adaptation, a realm where life negotiates its position between the constraints of gravity and the law of sunlight. The rise of stems also creates new possibilities for interaction, both within the plant and with its environment. Branches spread to intercept light more efficiently, leaves fan out to maximize energy capture, and flowers and reproductive structures emerge in spaces dictated by growth patterns, light, and internal signaling. Each step upward is a calculated response to opportunity and limitation, a patient negotiation that allows plants to occupy space previously beyond reach. Gravity continues to pull relentlessly downward, yet the stems persist, reminding us that even in the presence of immutable forces, life finds a way to rise, to adapt, to stretch toward possibility without forceful struggle, without dramatic confrontation, but with consistent, rhythmic persistence. And yet, the story of stems is more than structural. It is a reflection of resilience, of coordination, of communication across distances within the organism. Signals flow down phloem as sugars rise, hormones move from tip to root. Chemical messages coordinate growth, stress responses, and adaptations to environment. Every part of the plant, from root tip to leaf edge, participates in a silent dialogue, a conversation carried out in fluids and cell walls, in tension and pressure, in gradients of light and moisture. This internal conversation allows the plant to adjust to its environment in real time, to navigate challenges, to optimize survival, all while maintaining the elegance and simplicity of form. The vertical world of stems is therefore not merely structural, but profoundly relational, connecting root, leaf, light, and soil in an intricate, patient choreography. As we drift in imagination among these rising forms, picture the gentle upward movement of stems through moist soil and open air, their hollow conduits transporting life, their tissues strengthening in quiet response to weight and wind, their tips exploring light and space with patient curiosity. Each stem is both individual and collective, a single expression of growth, yet a continuation of the lineage that began with algae at the water's edge. The vertical insistence is an echo of survival itself, a demonstration that persistence, coordination, and responsiveness are as powerful as speed or force. In the slow ascent toward sunlight, plants teach us the quiet art of rising steadily, of negotiating challenges with patience, and of carrying memory, experience, and potential within every cell and tube. And so, as you settle into the rhythm of night, imagine the stems stretching upward, carrying water, minerals, and memory, balancing tension and gravity with subtle grace, and shaping the vertical spaces that will one day support entire ecosystems. Picture the sunlight scattering across tender leaves, the wind rustling the emerging structures, the faint hum of life negotiating physics and biology in quiet concert. Consider the question posed by this patient ascent. How far will life rise in its search for sunlight? Not in haste, but in the gentle insistence that balances risk and opportunity, structure and flexibility, patience and persistence. The answer unfolds slowly, imperceptibly, yet inevitably, in every shoot, in every leaf, in every vertical reach toward the light, marking the ongoing story of life's quiet triumph. From the patient ascent of stems, life reaches outward, and leaves emerge as quiet engines of light, thin and delicate, yet profoundly transformative. Each surface unfolds with gentle precision, like pages in a slowly opening book, revealing networks of veins that pulse subtly with the flow of water, nutrients, and sugars. The veins are not merely conduits. They are pathways of memory, carrying the story of rainfall, soil, and the patient history of each plant's struggle and adaptation. As the leaf stretches toward the sky, its pigments shimmer faintly, absorbing photons one by one, each particle of light captured and transformed into energy that will sustain growth, reproduction, and the continuation of life. The act of a leaf opening is quiet, almost imperceptible, yet it embodies the culmination of millions of years of adaptation, a patient negotiation between structure, chemistry, and the demands of the environment. Leaves exist at the interface between the plant and the world, a thin, soft layer where life converses with sunlight, air, and gravity. Their surfaces are sculpted for efficiency, each cell containing chloroplasts that gather light and initiate photosynthesis, the alchemy that turns sunlight into sugar. It is a process both chemical and poetic, invisible in its details yet monumental in consequence. Water rises through xylem from roots below, carrying the memory of rainfall, minerals, and the soils that nurtured them. Sugars produced in the leaf descend through phloem, distributing energy to the stem, the roots, and the growing tips of new shoots. In this quiet exchange, the leaf is a mediator, a translator of sunlight into matter, a bridge between energy in the sky and the tangible world below. It is a delicate rhythm, maintained without drama, without haste, yet with a precision that allows life to thrive across continents and millennia. Imagine the leaves of an ancient plant gently swaying in the wind, each edge catching scattered light, each vein conducting water and nutrients in silent symphony. Sunlight settles softly upon their surfaces, illuminating pigments in subtle greens, yellows, and reds, while chlorophyll captures photons to convert into the sugars that will sustain the organism. The leaf does not act with thought or intention, yet it performs one of the most sophisticated chemical operations in existence, quietly, endlessly, without recognition. Each time a leaf opens to the sky, it participates in an exchange with the universe, transforming energy, storing memory, and contributing to the web of life in a manner so subtle that the world scarcely notices. And yet, in this silent diligence, leaves carry forward the story of life itself, a record of adaptation, resilience, and patient experimentation written in living matter. Veins within the leaf are more than mechanical. They are the architecture of persistence, branching with efficiency, forming patterns that optimize flow and minimize stress. These fine networks allow every part of the leaf to receive water, to transport sugars, and to respond to environmental changes. Cells adjust their orientation to capture light optimally. Stomata open and close in response to humidity and carbon dioxide availability. The leaf is alive in multiple dimensions, sensing, responding, and adapting without awareness, yet in a manner that ensures both survival and efficiency. Each vein is a quiet librarian, cataloging the plant's experiences and distributing resources where they are most needed. In this way, the leaf becomes an interface between the microcosm of cellular activity and the macrocosm of ecosystems, a small yet vital stage on which the drama of life unfolds gently and without sound. The pigments themselves tell a story of adaptation. Chlorophyll, carotenoids, and other compounds balance light capture with protection, absorbing energy while preventing damage from excess radiation. They shimmer faintly in the soft glow of filtered sunlight, creating a subtle play of colors that change with age, light intensity, and environmental conditions. Each molecule is a participant in the transformation of energy, a microscopic actor in a performance that spans continents and millennia. The leaf, through its pigments, translates sunlight into the language of life, converting photons into sugars, starches, and the chemical signals that orchestrate growth and resilience. In this alchemy, the leaf demonstrates that even the thinnest, most fragile surfaces can wield extraordinary influence, quietly shaping the survival of the plant and the ecosystems around it. Leaves also form patterns that are ecological and social. In nature, shading the stems below, regulating temperature, and interacting with wind and rainfall. They create microclimates, offering shelter to tiny organisms, and influence the patterns of water flow across surfaces. The distribution of leaves on a stem or branch is not random. It is a response to light gradients, to gravity, and to the energetic needs of the plant. In their orientation and density, leaves demonstrate a silent negotiation with the environment, an intuitive geometry that maximizes opportunity and minimizes risk. They are at once delicate and deliberate, passive and profoundly active, extending the plant's reach into the light while maintaining the balance of its internal and external world. Consider now the leaves of an ancient forest, a quiet canopy above the stems, each surface absorbing sunlight, channeling energy, and communicating indirectly with the soil, roots, and neighboring plants. Water and nutrients move through the veins, sugars flow downward, and hormones travel in chemical waves, coordinating growth, repair, and defense. The leaf remembers each encounter with sunlight, each droplet of rain, each gust of wind, and encodes these experiences into its cells and tissues. This memory is subtle, distributed, and continuous, shaping how the plant responds to challenges and opportunities. In their patient, repetitive unfolding, leaves become archivists of environmental history, repositories of adaptation and resilience, and mediators of the life-giving exchange between sky and earth. And yet, for all their subtlety, leaves are profoundly poetic. Their thin green surfaces embody the patient translation of energy into life, the slow accumulation of experience, and the quiet insistence of living systems to capture what is needed without haste or drama. Each leaf is a testament to the power of structure and function, of form and flow, of energy transformed into matter. They perform tirelessly, without recognition, without applause, carrying forward the plant's survival and extending its reach into the sky. In their quiet work, they offer a meditation on persistence, patience, and the delicate art of sustaining life in harmony with the environment. They are reminders that the smallest surfaces can perform the largest tasks, that delicate structures can carry the weight of survival and memory, and that beauty and function often emerge in silence. As night deepens and the world settles into stillness, Imagine the leaves of ancient and modern plants stretching outward, shimmering softly in sunlight and shadow, each vein a conduit of energy and memory, each pigment a participant in the alchemy of life. Picture the quiet exchange of water, nutrients, and sugars, the patient transformation of photons into matter, the invisible connections that reach from leaf tip to root tip. And perhaps, as you settle into your own night, you can reflect on the question whispered by these quiet engines of light. What does a leaf remember each time it opens to the sky, carrying the story of rainfall, sunlight, and time in a patient, deliberate unfolding that sustains life and beauty in equal measure? From the patient rise of stems and the quiet diligence of leaves, life finds a new avenue of expression, one that reaches not only for sunlight but for connection beyond itself. Flowers emerge as subtle negotiators, fragile yet purposeful, delicate displays that invite the world to participate in life's continuance, in colors that shimmer softly under the sun, in scents that drift lightly through air and time, in shapes that cradle, extend, or conceal. Plants craft a language of survival that requires no movement, no grasping, no pursuit. Each bloom is both a structure and a strategy, a combination of beauty and function, signaling to wandering insects, birds, and other pollinators that a gift awaits, while quietly ensuring the continuation of genes, species, and ecosystems. In the stillness of a meadow or forest, flowers whisper their intentions, and the world responds in kind. Colors emerge first as pigments, each molecule a subtle negotiator with light. Anthocyanins and carotenoids shimmer and glow, producing reds, yellows, blues, and purples, drawing attention without noise, speaking without sound. Patterns form within petals, tiny guides that lead pollinators toward nectar, toward pollen, toward a transaction invisible to the human eye yet vital to life. These visual cues are not random. They are honed over millennia through quiet trial, error, and adaptation. A misalignment in shade or pattern may go unnoticed, yet those blooms that communicate effectively survive, sending their genes forward into countless future generations. The language of color is thus both aesthetic and practical, a calm negotiation between organism and environment, between life and life, performed in the subtlety of chemistry and light. Scent, too, becomes a medium of communication, drifting like a faint memory across air currents. Volatile compounds rise from petals, leaves, and nectaries, carrying messages that reach pollinators before they see the flower, attracting those whose needs and habits align with the plant's reproductive strategy. Each molecule is a whisper, a soft invitation, an unspoken contract. Pollinators, in turn, learn to associate particular scents with reward, creating a feedback loop that strengthens mutual survival. In this quiet dance, evolution learns not only to endure but to entice, to persuade without coercion, to invite rather than demand. Flowers become both creators and curators of relationships, fragile yet enduring, silent yet profoundly effective, the embodiment of strategy in stillness. Consider the shapes of petals, the curvature of stamen, the delicate balance between openness and enclosure. Each form directs, shelters, or exposes, guiding pollinators to where they are needed most. Tubular flowers accommodate hummingbirds or long-tongued insects. Flat blossoms welcome beetles and bees. Every curve, angle, and hollow is a negotiation with physics and biology, a patient adjustment to ensure success in the ongoing experiment of reproduction. And yet, despite this sophistication, flowers remain ephemeral, vulnerable to weather, predation, and chance. Their beauty is therefore not a guarantee, but a gentle assertion, a combination of risk and hope, a testament to the quiet logic of life learning to invite rather than command. Pollinators themselves become part of the story, participants in a slow evolutionary choreography that spans time and space. As they move from bloom to bloom, They carry pollen, transferring information and opportunity in a dance dictated by chemistry, color, and scent. The flower's success is inseparable from the behavior of its visitors, and in this interdependence, beauty is more than adornment. It is a strategy, a currency in the economy of life. The plant's persistence depends not only on its own adaptations, but on the responsiveness of the world around it, and in crafting color, shape, and scent. Evolution experiments with the quiet art of persuasion, with the subtle science of attraction, and with the patient orchestration of relationships that sustain ecosystems. Each flower carries the echoes of generations past, its form and fragrance shaped by successes and failures, by chance interactions and precise adaptations. Nectar is produced with careful economy, rewarding without waste. Pollen is placed with exquisite timing, maximizing the probability of contact and fertilization. Within every bloom, we see the interplay of risk and reward, of beauty and survival, of invitation and response. Flowers are both ephemeral and enduring, fleeting in individual life, yet eternal in their contribution to the continuity of plant lineages, reminding us that survival sometimes requires subtlety, patience, and the quiet cultivation of allure. Imagine a meadow at dawn, dew settling softly upon petals that shimmer in the gentle light. Bees hum between blooms, butterflies drift on invisible currents, moths explore shadows with delicate precision. Every movement is part of an unspoken agreement. The flower provides reward, the visitor provides transport, and life continues. In this stillness, we can perceive the quiet intelligence of evolution, a process that teaches plants not to compete with force alone, but to cooperate, to signal, to entice with beauty, and to endure through subtlety and elegance. Flowers, in their ephemeral bloom, are microcosms of strategy, art, and survival, reminding us that even in stillness, life acts, responds, and persists. The ephemeral beauty of flowers is a meditation on patience, timing, and delicate negotiation. Each day brings light and warmth. Each night brings coolness and rest. And in this rhythm, flowers perform their silent work, sending chemical signals, nurturing pollinator relationships, and extending the plant's reach into the world. Their existence is a quiet testament to the power of subtlety, to the efficacy of attraction over aggression, to the resilience found in invitation rather than force. In every bloom, we witness a patient learning process, a continuous adjustment to the environment, and a gentle conversation with creatures that, like ourselves, navigate the world through observation, response, and instinct. And so, as night settles and you breathe slowly, imagine these blooms scattered across fields, forests, and meadows, each petal an offering, each scent a message, each color a gentle invitation. Consider the quiet strategies that have allowed life to flourish in countless forms, the intricate interdependencies woven through air, soil, and sky, and the ephemeral elegance that ensures survival. Flowers are a reminder that persistence, subtlety, and beauty are intertwined in the work of life, and that survival is sometimes less about strength and more about the soft, patient art of invitation. As you drift with the rhythm of your own breath, let yourself ponder the gentle question left by these early blooms. Why does survival sometimes require beauty? And what does it teach us about the quiet power of drawing life toward us with grace, color, and scent, in an exchange that is as old as land itself? From the ephemeral beauty of flowers, life turns inward, concentrating energy, experience, and potential into the small, silent vessels we call seeds. Each seed is a portal of renewal, a fragile container of possibility, carrying within it the memory of the plant that produced it and the promise of the life yet to come. Encased in protective coats, often hard or textured to withstand the challenges of a changing world, seeds sleep in quiet patience, insulated from storms, droughts, and the passage of seasons. They embody a principle of life that is both deliberate and gentle, the understanding that existence is not only about immediate action, but also about waiting, conserving, and listening for the right moment to awaken. In their stillness, seeds hold the quiet wisdom of resilience, a lesson in endurance written into the very fabric of life. Within each seed rests a tiny embryo, a miniature blueprint of the plant it will become. The embryonic tissues are organized with astonishing precision, every cell in its place, every structure encoded with instructions for growth, for adaptation, for survival. Cotyledons, plumules, radicals, these names are more than scientific labels. They are markers of potential, maps for an organism that has yet to breathe, to reach for light, to root into soil. The seed may lie dormant for weeks, months, or even years, impervious to cold, dryness, or darkness, yet all the while it is poised for action. Time itself seems suspended within this small vessel, condensed into a latent energy that waits not in anxiety, but in patient readiness. And in this patience, there is profound intelligence, a recognition that life's timing is neither forced nor rushed, but emerges in alignment with circumstance, with opportunity, and with the rhythms of the world. The seed's armor is a marvel of natural engineering. Layers of hardened tissue, waxy coatings, or fibrous husks provide protection, balancing permeability with resilience, safeguarding the embryo while permitting the subtle exchange of air and moisture needed to sense the outside world. Some seeds rely on fire, passing through heat to break dormancy. Others respond to moisture, light, or the digestive journey through an animal. Each mechanism is a negotiation with the environment, a delicate conversation in which life asserts patience while remaining attuned to the cues that signal a safe moment to emerge. There is a quiet poetry in these forms, a testament to evolution's long practice of balancing vulnerability with security, of encoding flexibility into stillness, and of ensuring survival through foresight and latent potential rather than force or haste when the conditions are right. Warmth, moisture, and soil that can support life. The seed awakens. The radical, the first root, emerges, probing downward with the same patience and subtlety as ancient roots before it. Simultaneously, the plumule unfolds upward, sensing light, gravity, and chemical gradients, stretching tentatively but purposefully. Water and nutrients absorbed by the nascent root feed the embryonic tissues, activating cellular machinery and initiating growth that has waited silently for this moment. Every cell division, every elongation, every differentiation is a quiet echo of the patient history encoded in the seed, a continuation of a lineage that spans millennia. The emergence is slow, rhythmic, and unhurried, a demonstration that life's most profound transformations often unfold in calm, deliberate gestures rather than abrupt movements. Seeds also carry within them the memory of their parent plants, a genetic archive that encodes adaptations, resistances, and strategies honed over generations. In their tiny structures, seeds preserve knowledge of drought tolerance, nutrient efficiency, predator avoidance, and environmental responsiveness. This memory is chemical, structural, and architectural, manifesting in the embryo's form, the thickness of the coat, the arrangement of cells. It is as if the plant whispers to its successor, "This is what we have learned. This is how to endure. This is how to begin again." And when the seed finally germinates, it does so not as a blank slate, but as a continuation of countless cycles of trial, patience, and adaptation, a living chronicle that bridges past and future in a single, quiet act. Even in dormancy, seeds influence the world around them. They become part of the soil ecosystem, interacting with microbes, fungi, and minerals. Some seeds release chemical signals that shape the microbial communities around them, preparing a favorable environment for when germination occurs. Others are transported by wind, water, or animals, traveling silently to new locations where life can continue. The patience of seeds is therefore not passive. It is an active engagement with time, space, and ecology. The act of waiting is interwoven with subtle preparation, an acknowledgement that growth is only possible when the conditions are harmonious, when the world is ready to receive the next generation, and when survival can unfold in quiet, measured rhythm. Imagine a field strewn with countless seeds, each a potential life, each a repository of history, each a testament to the enduring logic of patience. Some lie buried beneath layers of soil, waiting for years before sensing the right conditions. Others ride the wind to distant soils, carried without knowledge, trusting only the resilience built into their structure. Some are eaten and pass through the digestive tract of animals, emerging in distant landscapes ready to begin again. Each seed is an agent of possibility, a small vessel containing energy, knowledge, and potential, quietly asserting that life is not only about reaching and expanding, but also about waiting, enduring, and responding with timing that is both deliberate and subtle. And as we drift together through the quiet thought of seeds, imagine their hidden networks beneath the surface, their interactions with soil, moisture, and light, their silent negotiation with the environment. Consider the wisdom embedded in their dormancy, the patience encoded in every embryo, the strategy that balances risk with potential, fragility with resilience. Seeds teach us that beginnings are not always dramatic, that survival often depends on stillness, and that growth is a process measured not in speed but in readiness, attunement, and timing. They remind us that life's most profound continuities are often hidden, latent, and unseen yet ever present, waiting for the right moment to unfold. O. As you settle into the rhythm of your night, let the quiet patience of seed speak to you. Imagine the latent energy, the embedded knowledge, the careful architecture, and the slow awakening that follows the rhythm of rain, warmth, and soil. Each seed holds a story, a lineage, and a promise, and perhaps in their stillness we can reflect on the question they silently pose: what wisdom lies in the patience of seeds, and how might we carry that understanding into the unfolding of our own lives, trusting the quiet, deliberate timing that allows growth to happen when the moment is ready, and life to emerge in perfect alignment with the world around it. Life in the vertical world is not without challenge. While stems rise patiently and leaves capture sunlight, threads move quietly around them, creeping, nibbling, piercing, and consuming without pause. Yet plants remain still, anchored by roots, rising with stems, extending leaves and flowers into the world without the ability to flee, to hide, or to strike. In this immobility lies a paradoxical strength, one that evolution has honed over millions of years, the art of defense through chemistry. Each leaf, stem, and flower becomes a silent laboratory, producing compounds that ward off herbivores, deter fungi and bacteria, and even summon allies. In the absence of motion, life learns to speak in molecules, crafting subtle warnings, gentle toxins, and fragrant calls for help, a quiet dialogue with the world that ensures survival without the need for confrontation. The chemistry of defense begins at the cellular level, in compartments filled with alkaloids, terpenes, phenolics, and other secondary metabolites. These molecules, small yet potent, can taste bitter, burn, or irritate, discouraging consumption by animals or insects. Yet they are not random. Each compound has been selected over countless generations, refined by the patient pressure of predation and disease. When a caterpillar nibbles a leaf, it does more than remove tissue. It triggers an internal cascade, activating genes that produce additional defenses, sometimes in distant leaves, sometimes in roots or flowers. The plant's response is precise, distributed, and anticipatory, a complex choreography of chemical signals that spread silently through tissues and across time. In this, stillness is transformed into action, and immobility becomes an active, strategic form of strength. Beyond deterrence, many plants enlist allies, sending fragrant chemical signals into the air to attract predators or parasitoids of the herbivores that threaten them. A tiny wasp, drawn by the scent of a stressed leaf, arrives to lay its eggs inside a caterpillar, providing a form of protection mediated entirely by molecules and attraction. This interaction, invisible yet elegant, demonstrates that stillness does not imply passivity. The plant's chemistry extends beyond its physical form, reaching into the surrounding environment to negotiate, communicate, and influence the behavior of other organisms. Each scent is a message, every volatile molecule a note in a symphony of survival, written not for human ears, but for the creatures with whom life is intertwined. The immobile plant, in its patient persistence, becomes an active participant in its ecosystem, leveraging chemistry in place of movement. Consider the layered sophistication of these defenses. Some compounds operate constantly, providing baseline protection through bitter or toxic tissue. Others are inducible, produced only when the plant senses attack, conserving energy while ensuring readiness. Many act in concert, combining deterrence with attraction, toxicity with signaling, subtlety with potency. A single leaf under threat becomes a hub of chemical intelligence, its cells coordinating responses that span from root to tip, internally and externally, in a network of molecular communication. Through these interactions, stillness itself gains potency, transforming immobility into resilience, defense, and even offense in the most delicate, patient ways. Life has learned that survival does not always require movement, but can emerge through anticipation, responsiveness, and strategic influence. The evolutionary story of plant defense is one of balance. Compounds that repel herbivores must not harm beneficial organisms. Signals that attract protectors must be precise enough to reach only the intended recipients. Over time, plants have learned to calibrate, to fine-tune, and to optimize their chemical expressions. The shapes of leaves, the placement of glands, the timing of volatile release all contribute to a subtle orchestration that is both complex and quiet. The chemistry of defense is, in essence, a language, written in molecules and read by insects, fungi, and microorganisms, a patient negotiation that allows life to persist while remaining rooted in place. In this quiet mastery, stillness becomes an art form, and chemistry becomes a force as powerful as motion, speed, or strength, even in the absence of external threats. Plants maintain these chemical capacities, a preparation that bridges present conditions with future uncertainty. Their defenses are both memory and foresight, a chemical archive that records past attacks while anticipating potential ones. Leaves and stems encode experiences, adjusting concentrations, producing new molecules, and refining signaling pathways over seasons and years. Through this process, immobility becomes wisdom, patience becomes power, and stillness becomes a mode of engagement with the world. Each chemical response, each fragrant warning, each bitter leaf is a testament to the ingenuity of life that cannot run, yet persists, adapts, and thrives through strategic immobility. Imagine standing in a forest where leaves shimmer softly in the gentle light, each carrying unseen compounds, each sending subtle messages into the air. Caterpillars may nibble, insects may explore, yet the plant remains poised, its defenses patiently active, its signals precise and measured. The chemistry flows silently through veins, across tissues, and into the surrounding air, shaping the interactions that determine survival. The stillness of the plant belies the complexity within, a hidden world of molecular dialogue, of negotiation and preparation, of subtle influence over a realm of movement, consumption, and response. In this quiet network, immobility is not vulnerability, but a strategic stance, a deliberate harnessing of chemical power to shape life without leaving one's place. And yet, these defenses are not merely utilitarian. They are also a reminder of life's elegance in constraint. The immobile plant transforms limitation into opportunity, using chemistry to extend its influence, to protect its body, and to communicate across distances. Every bitter taste, Every fragrant call, every inducible compound is a note in a vast, silent symphony, a testament to the intelligence embedded in stillness. Life teaches us that strength does not always require motion, that resilience can emerge from patience, and that the quiet articulation of chemical language can be as decisive as any gesture of force. The plant's immobility becomes a canvas on which evolution paints strategies of survival with subtlety, grace, and precision. So as night deepens and the world grows still, imagine the hidden conversations among leaves, stems, and roots, the unseen exchanges with insects, fungi, and neighboring plants, the patient orchestration of chemical defense that sustains life without motion. Reflect on the paradoxical power of stillness, how the inability to flee has led to one of the most sophisticated strategies of survival in the living world. And as you drift with the rhythm of your own breath, consider the quiet question that flowers and leaves pose to the patient observer. How does stillness become a form of strength? And what wisdom might it offer us in learning to endure, influence, and thrive in ways that require patience, subtlety, and quiet resilience? From the patient strategies of defense, life begins to stretch in scale, rising into verticality that transforms both landscape and perception. Trees emerge as living monuments, their trunks reaching slowly, deliberately, each centimeter a record of persistence, each branch a testament to patient negotiation with light, gravity, and the environment. In the quiet, the bark forms a shield, rough yet supple, protecting inner tissues while allowing growth and resilience. The tree does not hurry, does not compete with impatience, but instead listens to the rhythm of seasons, to rainfall, to sunlight, to wind, and to the subtle pressure of soil beneath its roots. Each trunk, each limb, each leaf becomes part of a slow choreography that weaves the ephemeral motions of the world into a structure that can endure centuries. The tree embodies a quiet translation of time, making visible the accumulation of years in rings, scars, and spirals that are both functional and poetic inside the trunk. The wood is alive in ways that are invisible to casual observation. Xylem channels water from roots to leaves, carrying the memory of rainfall long past, while phloem distributes sugars produced in leaves to support growth, repair, and reproduction. Annual rings record the rhythms of climate, sometimes wide in years of plenty, narrow in years of drought, each ring a chronicle of subtle triumphs and challenges. The density, color, and arrangement of these rings are the language through which the tree remembers, a quiet archive of environmental history, encoded in cells. In resting our hands against the bark, we touch not only the present organism, but the memory of decades, centuries, perhaps millennia, a living record of patience, endurance, and interaction with forces far beyond the scope of any individual lifespan. Branches unfold like careful gestures into the light, balancing structural support with the need to capture sunlight efficiently. Each limb is a compromise, an elegant solution to competing demands, the pull of gravity, the tension of wind, the weight of snow, and the requirement for photosynthetic surfaces. In the branching patterns, we see the same logic that guided early leaves and flowers, now scaled up, iterated over decades, an architectural reflection of growth that is both functional and deeply expressive. Trees respond to their environment continuously, adjusting growth patterns, reinforcing weakened limbs, and pruning where stress demands. Even without conscious thought, the tree negotiates life's challenges with an intelligence born of evolution, patience, and the cumulative effects of time. In this, we glimpse the quiet mastery of form and function that allows a single organism to reach skyward while anchoring itself firmly in the earth. Consider the leaves atop the canopy, their surfaces dancing with sunlight, producing sugars that flow downward to support the body of the tree. Roots mirror this activity underground, spreading wide and deep, sensing moisture, negotiating obstacles, and interacting with mycorrhizal networks that connect it to other trees and organisms. This duality above ground and below ground creates a continuous loop of energy, information, and adaptation, making the tree not a static presence, but a living, responsive system. Each branch, each leaf, each root tip participates in a dialogue that spans time and space, transforming sunlight into energy, growth, and longevity. Trees teach us that structure and patience are inseparable, that time is not simply passed but embodied, measured in rings, reinforced in wood, and expressed in the silent unfolding of branches. The bark, with its rough textures and protective layers, is more than armor. It is a record of experience, of storms weathered, insects deterred, fire survived, and environmental fluctuations endured. Some trees bear scars where lightning struck, where wind broke branches, or where the touch of an animal left its mark. These markings, etched into the living wood beneath, tell a story of persistence and adaptation. Rings tell a story of water, scarcity or abundance, sunlight or shade, slow years and fast years, and the subtle impact of climate over decades. In every scar, groove, and ridge, time is made visible, a language that we can sense through touch and imagination, even if we cannot fully read it. The tree's body is a chronicle of continuity, memory, and patient resilience, translating years into structure and growth into narrative. Roots extend deep, anchoring the tree and interacting with soil, fungi, and neighboring plants in a web of subterranean communication. They sense the moisture gradient, the composition of minerals, and the presence of other roots, negotiating space without sight or awareness, guided by chemical signals and subtle gradients. Mycorrhizal fungi connect root systems across individual trees, forming networks that redistribute nutrients, share warnings, and maintain stability. In this underground community, trees are both individuals and participants in a larger system, their longevity linked to the quiet rhythms of the ecosystem. Here, as above ground, stillness is not inactivity. It is a measured, patient engagement with the world, an embodiment of strength through presence, an assertion that resilience often emerges from continuity rather than haste. Tree rings, bark, and branching patterns all combine to create a language of time, visible and tactile, immediate and expansive. Each tree becomes a slow chronicle, marking the passage of seasons, the ebb and flow of resources, and the patient negotiation of survival over decades and centuries. The accumulation of growth is steady, imperceptible in any single moment, yet undeniable across the lifespan of the organism. The tree, in its patient ascent and enduring presence, allows us to touch time, to feel continuity, and to sense the deep rhythms that govern life. In standing beneath a towering trunk, or resting a hand against its bark, we encounter not only its physical form, but the echoes of countless years, the slow, deliberate unfolding of survival, and the quiet mastery of life extended over centuries. Leaves, flowers, and fruits continue the tree's dialogue with the world, mediating energy capture, reproduction, and ecological relationships. Yet it is the trunk and branches that encode history, patience, and endurance. The tree becomes a living bridge between momentary life and geological time, translating ephemeral sunlight, wind, and rain into enduring structure. Through this embodiment, we can sense the temporal depth of existence, the accumulation of events into matter, and the wisdom inherent in patience and resilience. The vertical ascent of the tree mirrors the slow, deliberate unfolding of life itself, reminding us that growth and memory are inseparable, that structure and experience are intertwined, and that time is both witnessed and embodied in living. Form.so. As night deepens and the world grows quiet, place your hand gently against the trunk, feeling the ridges, textures, and energy flowing beneath. Sense the continuity of years, the patient response to storms, the translation of light into matter, the slow negotiation of survival encoded in rings, bark, and branches. Consider the question that the trees leave for those who touch them. What part of time do we touch when we rest our hand against a tree? When the slow architecture of growth, memory, and persistence meets our fleeting presence? In this reflection, we glimpse the quiet majesty of life extended over centuries, the patient wisdom of endurance, and the serene poetry of time made visible through living wood, leaves, and roots. Beneath the quiet canopy, where sunlight barely reaches and the world above hums softly with wind and birdsong, a different life pulses in shadow. Here, roots intertwine with the delicate, silky threads of fungi, forming networks invisible to our eyes, yet vast and vital. These subterranean connections stretch across meters, sometimes spanning entire forests, linking individual plants into a collective web of exchange, communication, and care. The mycorrhizal fungi act as translators, moving sugars, nutrients, and chemical messages from one root to another, a hidden economy of support and warning that sustains life in ways that defy immediate perception. In this underworld, survival is not solitary. It is a conversation, a negotiation, a subtle choreography performed without eyes or ears, relying instead on chemistry, touch, and the slow rhythm of growth. Each thread carries signals as precise as they are gentle. When one plant experiences stress drought, herbivore attack, or nutrient scarcity, chemical cues travel through the fungal network to neighboring roots. These neighbors, in turn, adjust their physiology, bolstering defenses, slowing growth, or redirecting resources in anticipation of change. In this silent dialogue, the forest acts as both community and organism, an emergent intelligence woven from countless individual parts. The signals are faint, almost imperceptible to the casual observer, yet in their cumulative effect, they orchestrate resilience. The forest underworld, though unseen, is alive with information, a medium where stillness becomes communication, and the immobile asserts influence across space and time. Sugars flow along the mycelial threads like whispered messages, feeding seedlings, strengthening mature trees, or sustaining plants temporarily weakened by environmental stress. Some species contribute more, others receive, and this balance is dynamic, shifting with seasons, soil conditions, and ecological pressures. In this hidden economy, generosity and reciprocity define survival. No single plant dominates. Instead, success emerges from participation in a system of exchange, where interconnectedness becomes a form of power. It is a patience learned over millennia, a strategy embedded in the very fibers of roots and fungal threads, revealing that communication in silence can be as decisive as movement or aggression, and that life thrives not only through individual effort, but through shared understanding and collective response. The fungal threads themselves are remarkable in structure and function. They are both highways and information networks, fine enough to drift between soil particles, resilient enough to withstand shifting earth, and permeable enough to mediate a flow of nutrients and messages. Within these threads, chemical signals travel, sugars circulate, and symbiotic relationships flourish. The network is dynamic, extending and retracting as resources and needs dictate, shaping the forest's growth, composition, and stability. Roots anchor the system, but the network itself becomes a living fabric of life, responsive, adaptive, and continuous. It is a subtle intelligence, emergent from the interactions of countless microscopic agents, yet it sustains forests at a scale that we can see and touch. If we pay attention to the quiet spaces beneath our feet, consider the young seedlings that rely on these networks for survival. Unable to photosynthesize fully in early stages, they receive sugar gifts from established neighbors, gradually building energy reserves until they can reach the light. The generosity of the network allows continuity, ensuring that life persists, even through fragile beginnings. Older trees, in turn, are supported by the shared stability of the forest, buffered against localized stress, disease, and scarcity. The mycorrhizal web mediates an intricate balance, where every plant, fungus, and root tip contributes to a collective resilience that exceeds what any single organism could achieve. The forest, in its subterranean mind, demonstrates that life's complexity is not always visible. Sometimes the most profound intelligence unfolds in quiet connection, in the patient, invisible exchange that sustains generations. Messages in the network are not limited to nutrients alone. Chemical cues warn of threats, inducing nearby plants to preemptively produce defensive compounds or to alter growth patterns. These warnings travel silently, faster than physical change, alerting distant organisms to imminent risk. In effect, the forest anticipates, prepares, and responds collectively, translating individual stress into communal strategy. Each reaction is measured, modulated, and context-dependent, a demonstration of how information flows through stillness. The immobile plants become conduits, receivers, and transmitters, participating in a communication system that blurs the boundaries between individual and community, between organism and environment, between life and the subtle intelligence that arises when many act as one. The forest mind also teaches us about patience. Signals propagate slowly, in synchrony with growth, with seasonal changes, with environmental cues. Unlike the rapid responses of animals, this network operates in a rhythm of hours, days, and weeks, where action is measured and calibrated. Its intelligence is emergent, cumulative, and reflective, built from countless interactions repeated over time. This is a lesson in resilience and adaptability, demonstrating that influence does not always require speed, and that stability can emerge from distributed, patient communication. Each thread, each root tip, each fungal hypha contributes to a system whose scale transcends individual lifespans, reminding us that survival and understanding often arise through enduring, subtle networks rather than immediate, obvious force. Imagine standing in the forest above ground, feeling the wind in leaves and sunlight on bark, unaware of the intricate conversations unfolding below. Yet beneath your feet, in the quiet soil, messages flow, resources move, and generations are supported. The forest hums softly in this hidden space, alive with coordination, memory, and foresight. Roots entwine, fungi stretch, and life maintains continuity in a rhythm imperceptible to the hurried eye. The underworld is not less alive than the canopy. It is vibrant, responsive, and intelligent in its own slow way, teaching that connection and communication are not bound by motion, but by interaction, patience, and attention to the needs of the collective. And so, as you breathe slowly, imagining this subterranean web, consider the quiet question it poses. How alive is the unseen conversation beneath the forest floor? In listening, in imagining, in contemplating, we touch the intelligence encoded not in thought, but in connection, not in movement, but in the patient, invisible negotiation that sustains life across seasons, centuries, and generations. The forest mind teaches that life's most profound dialogues are often hidden, occurring in shadow and soil, whispering lessons of cooperation, resilience, and the quiet power of networks that link the living world in ways that our eyes rarely perceive, but that our imagination can almost feel, like an undercurrent moving steadily beneath the still surface of a gentle river. Beyond the gentle forests and quiet meadows, life encounters the extremes, where conditions push survival to its very limits. In deserts, where heat shimmers across barren sands, plants must endure the relentless sun and scarce water, learning to conserve, to endure, and to measure every drop. In tundras, the cold bites deep, frost persists for months, and the growing season is a brief whisper in the long silence of snow. On mountain tops, winds slice across slopes, oxygen thins, and radiation penetrates with unfiltered intensity. Along salt-soaked shores, life contends with brine that can dehydrate, disrupt, and corrode. In these landscapes, plants sculpt themselves with patience and ingenuity, adopting forms and strategies that allow them not merely to exist, but to endure and even flourish. Each adaptation is a quiet testament to resilience, an embodiment of life's capacity to persist where challenge seems absolute. In deserts, leaves often vanish, replaced by spines or needles that minimize water loss while still providing some protection from herbivores. Thick cuticles and waxy coatings shimmer faintly in the heat, reflecting sunlight and preserving precious moisture. Roots extend far and wide, sometimes reaching depths unimaginable to access water stored beneath the parched soil. The plant's metabolism slows. Photosynthesis becomes a careful negotiation with the day, a rhythm attuned to the hours when evaporation is minimal and light is sufficient. These are not rapid, dramatic gestures. They are slow, deliberate choices etched into cells and tissues, honed over countless generations to transform scarcity into strategy, fragility into endurance. The desert plant is a lesson in measured patience, a quiet monument to survival under constraint. In polar tundras, plants hug the ground, forming low mats that trap heat, shelter moisture, and resist the relentless wind. Their leaves are small, thick and covered in insulating hairs, creating microclimates around each growing tip. The soil may remain frozen for most of the year, yet roots penetrate just enough to access the nutrients released during the fleeting thaw. Flowers bloom quickly, in a concentrated burst timed precisely with sunlight and warmth. Life here is compressed, hyper-focused, yet no less poetic, reflecting a rhythm dictated by extremes rather than comfort. In each fleeting season, plants perform a careful dance with time itself, capturing light, accumulating energy, and storing resilience in ways that are both subtle and profound. High mountains offer another form of challenge. Plants endure intense UV radiation, fluctuating temperatures, and winds that threaten to tear leaves and stems apart. Some cushion themselves in rosettes, hugging the ground to resist exposure, while others develop thickened tissues, pigments that filter sunlight, or hairs that trap warmth. These adaptations are slow, layered, and deliberate, reflecting a deep negotiation with the elements. Energy is spent sparingly, growth is measured, and reproduction occurs only when the balance of conditions permits. The mountain plant teaches a quiet humility, that life can thrive at the edge of limits, that persistence is expressed not in bold gestures but in careful, patient adjustment to circumstance. Salt-soaked shores present another challenge entirely. Halophytes plants adapted to saline environments manage the dual pressures of dehydration and toxicity. Specialized cells excrete excess salt, succulent tissues store water, and root systems navigate soils that would overwhelm most other species. Leaves shimmer with adaptations, reflecting harsh sunlight, and flowers bloom in the brief windows when moisture and temperature align. These plants live on the knife edge between abundance and scarcity, demonstrating a resilience that is both chemical and structural, a testament to life's ability to carve strategy from harshness. In every adaptation, there is a story of negotiation, the slow accumulation of traits, the patient calibration of growth, the quiet resilience that emerges from constraint. Across all extreme environments, a common thread emerges: rhythm. Life slows in response to stress, whether through metabolic depression, reduced growth, or delayed reproduction. Time itself becomes a resource to be managed, a medium in which survival can unfold. Patterns emerge: days measured in opening and closing leaves, months marked by flowering and dormancy, years recorded in tissue density and pigment concentration. Plants in extreme places teach us that endurance is not frantic struggle, but careful alignment with circumstance. Resilience is less a matter of force than of understanding, less of action than of measured, deliberate presence within an environment that demands patience, flexibility, and subtle intelligence. The beauty of these adaptations is not only functional, but also aesthetic. Cacti with their spines sculpt shadow and light. Tundra mats bloom with tiny jewels in the brief summer. Alpine rosettes form geometric crowns against the stone, and salt marsh succulents glisten in the sun like scattered emeralds. Here, survival is intertwined with artistry, the necessities of endurance shaping forms that are both effective and poetic. Evolution's hand moves slowly, carving strategy into structure, compressing wisdom into tissue, and writing resilience into every cell. In extreme landscapes, life demonstrates that beauty and survival are not separate, that poetry can emerge from constraint, and that the quiet choreography of adaptation creates forms as compelling as any designed for ease or abundance. Consider the chemical strategies that accompany structural adaptations. Desert and alpine plants often produce secondary metabolites that deter herbivores or prevent microbial invasion. Tundra plants synthesize antifreeze proteins that prevent intracellular damage, while halophytes manage ions with specialized enzymes and storage vacuoles. These chemical measures are integrated seamlessly with physical forms, creating an orchestra of survival where structure, chemistry, and timing converge. Life in extremes is multidimensional, a symphony of adaptations that respond simultaneously to light, water, wind, temperature, and predation. Every cell is both a participant in defense and a contributor to endurance, demonstrating that resilience is a holistic phenomenon, emergent from the interaction of countless traits refined over generations. And so, as you imagine deserts, tundras, mountaintops, and salt-soaked shores in the quiet of the night, picture plants sculpted by time, circumstance, and necessity, each a living poem of endurance. See the slow unfolding of leaves, the careful placement of spines, the shimmer of oils and hairs that guard against extremes, the patient rhythm of life calibrated to environmental constraint. Reflect on the question these survivors pose to the observer. What does resilience look like when life is carved by harshness, and how might the patient, deliberate strategies of plants in extreme places inspire our understanding of endurance, adaptation, and the subtle intelligence that emerges when life persists through challenge rather than escape? In these extreme worlds, life whispers its wisdom through structure, rhythm, and persistence, inviting us to witness resilience not as force, but as careful, enduring negotiation with the world. In the quiet corners of gardens, forests, and fields, plants operate with a subtle intelligence that unfolds at a pace foreign to our own. They sense the tilt of light, the pull of gravity, the availability of nutrients, and the gentle brush of air or touch against their surfaces. Each movement, each adjustment, is a response calibrated over seconds, hours, or days, far slower than thought, yet profoundly precise. In this patient rhythm, life discovers ways of navigating the environment, not through haste or force, but through attunement and observation. Plants sense gradients, measure signals, and adjust growth and physiology in response to subtle changes, creating a living dialogue with the world that is almost invisible to human perception. Their decisions are measured, deliberate, and adaptive, revealing an intelligence that values listening above acting, understanding above reaction. Roots explore soil with a careful deliberation, negotiating moisture and mineral content with exquisite sensitivity. Tiny root tips detect chemical signals, microbial populations, and the presence of neighboring plants, adjusting direction, branching, and absorption accordingly. In the canopy above, leaves orient themselves to sunlight, changing angle and surface exposure to maximize photosynthesis while avoiding damage. Flowers time their opening with pollinator activity, releasing scents in rhythm with wind and insect presence. Every organ participates in a web of perception and response, where the plant's sensory apparatus creates a continuous assessment of the environment. This is intelligence expressed in slow, tactile, chemical, and structural ways, a patient negotiation with the physical world that has allowed plants to survive, adapt, and thrive for hundreds of millions of years. In observing these processes, we glimpse a form of cognition that contrasts with our own. Plants do not think or reason as animals do, nor do they act with conscious intent, yet their behaviors reveal awareness encoded in form, function, and response. Each adjustment embodies the accumulated wisdom of evolutionary history, expressed in real time through morphology, chemistry, and movement. The sensory world of plants hums beneath our own, subtle and constant, often imperceptible yet profoundly effective. They remind us that intelligence need not be rapid or dramatic to be effective. Listening, sensing, and responding at the right scale can shape survival, persistence, and resilience in ways that are as powerful as any act of force or speed. Consider the phenomenon of phototropism, where stems bend gently toward light. This bending is slow, almost imperceptible. Yet it represents a precise calculation. The plant senses light intensity, direction, and duration, adjusting growth at the cellular level to optimize energy capture. Roots exhibit a similar attentiveness, navigating gradients of water and nutrients, sometimes avoiding obstacles or competitors, other times growing toward beneficial fungi or soil patches rich in resources. Leaves adjust their angle, stomata open and close in rhythm with humidity and carbon dioxide levels, and flowers release scent in coordination with pollinator activity. Each response is measured, iterative, and continuous, a form of decision-making that emerges from constant listening rather than impulsive action. The integration of sensory information occurs across scales, from single cells to the whole organism, and sometimes even across networks connecting multiple plants through mycorrhizal. Fungi, signals of touch, chemical gradients, light intensity, and gravity converge to guide growth, defense, and reproduction. A single leaf, in responding to shadow, herbivory, or touch, can influence the allocation of resources throughout the plant, triggering defensive compounds, redirecting energy, or altering flowering patterns. In this way, intelligence is not localized in a brain or nervous system, but distributed across tissues, cells, and organs, an emergent property of form and function interacting with environment. The plant's world is one of sensing, responding, and synchronizing with forces larger than itself, a quiet intelligence operating without urgency yet with profound effect. This intelligence is not only reactive but anticipatory. Plants can remember previous exposures to stress, priming themselves for future challenges. Leaves can retain chemical signals from past herbivore attacks. Roots can adjust to prior drought conditions, and some species can transmit warnings through interconnected fungal networks. Experience is encoded in tissue structure, metabolic capacity, and chemical readiness, providing a slow form of memory that informs present and future behavior. In this, the plant's approach to intelligence emphasizes continuity, persistence, and subtlety. Listening becomes a form of foresight. Sensing becomes strategy. Patience becomes an instrument of survival. The wisdom inherent in such slow, attentive adaptation has accumulated over eons, shaping life forms that endure where others perish, not through strength or speed, but through awareness, timing, and responsiveness. Imagine walking through a forest at twilight, where sunlight softens into amber and shadows lengthen across the ground. All around, the plant world adjusts imperceptibly, roots sensing the moisture that remains after they heat, leaves angling toward fading light, flowers preparing for nocturnal visitors. These movements are subtle, rhythmic, continuous, and yet profoundly intelligent. The forest breathes in a slow cadence of perception, its inhabitants monitoring, responding, and anticipating in a language we cannot hear but can imagine. The intelligence that guides these adjustments is quiet, patient, and unassuming, yet it governs survival and success with an elegance that seems almost philosophical. Here, intelligence is not measured in rapid decisions, but in the attunement to patterns, relationships, and flows of energy over time. And so, as night deepens and the world softens, reflect on the question that the plants leave for us. What might we learn from beings that survive by listening more than acting, that persist by sensing more than forcing, and that navigate the world with patient, deliberate, and subtle intelligence? Perhaps in observing their rhythm, their attentiveness, and their quiet responsiveness, we recognize that strength is not always in action, that wisdom is not always in thought, and that resilience often grows where listening, patience, and attentiveness govern the flow of life. In their gentle perception, plants offer a model of endurance and intelligence that is slow, integrated, and profoundly attuned to the rhythms of the world, inviting us to pause, to notice, and to learn from a form of cognition that has persisted for hundreds of millions of years, silently shaping every forest, meadow, and garden we walk through. We began this journey with a quiet question. What does it mean that all green life begins with a gentle reach toward light? And now, after tracing roots, stems, leaves, flowers, seeds, trees, forests, and the subtle intelligence that hums beneath and above, we arrive at the rhythm that repeats endlessly, the soft cadence of life that refuses finality. In every sprout that pierces soil, every leaf that unfurls, every flower that opens to pollinators, and every seed that sleeps patiently before awakening, the story of survival is retold with gentle insistence. It is a story written not in words, but in tissue, pigment, water, and sunlight, an ancient narrative that continues without interruption, a testament to life's quiet, unwavering persistence. Watching even a single green stem, we witness the culmination of countless generations, a living echo of adaptation, patience, and enduring presence. Observe the leaf as it emerges from a bud, slow, deliberate, curling outward in careful rhythm. Within its delicate veins, sugars begin their quiet dance, drawing energy from sunlight and distributing it to cells that will grow, repair, and support the organism. In that simple movement, the leaf embodies resilience, continuity, and history, carrying within it the memory of survival strategies honed over millions of years. Each opening is both repetition and renewal, a bridge between past and present, a gentle reminder that life's continuity is not accidental, but the outcome of countless, measured decisions written into form and function. To witness this process is to touch the pulse of time itself, to recognize the patient intelligence embedded in organisms that cannot move yet thrive endlessly. The flowering plant continues this narrative, inviting pollinators with color, shape, and scent. Its bloom is a subtle negotiation, offering pollen and nectar while ensuring that reproduction proceeds without force or haste. Each interaction is delicate and precise, a quiet choreography between species that sustains not only individual survival but the ongoing perpetuation of lineage. In the seeds that follow, the cycle becomes even more contemplative, encapsulating the potential of future life within protective casings. Dormant, yet ready, these seeds await the moment when conditions align, when soil, moisture, and light allow the story to recommence. In their patience, they remind us that life's endurance is often achieved through restraint, timing, and the silent accumulation of readiness, rather than through speed, aggression, or dominance. Roots, though hidden from immediate sight, continue to connect, nourish, and anchor. They participate in subterranean networks that redistribute resources, share warnings, and create community-wide resilience. The wisdom of underground communication mirrors what unfolds above, a reflection of the same principles: patience, connection, adaptability, and careful listening. Trees, shrubs, and herbaceous plants alike participate in this continuous dialogue, producing life that is more than individual. It is collective, responsive, and interdependent. In this interplay between what is visible and invisible, above and below, we sense that the story of green life is both intimate and vast, extending through soil, stem, and canopy in a way that unites generations, species, and landscapes. And yet, the story does not end with the individual plant. Forests, meadows, and fields are assemblages of countless cycles, each one a repetition of emergence, growth, reproduction, and senescence. Flowers fade, leaves drop, and seeds disperse, returning nutrients to the soil, nourishing fungi and microbes, and setting the stage for new growth. In this rhythm, life teaches a quiet lesson. Beginnings and endings are intertwined. Recurrence is essential, and the apparent stillness of a moment contains within it the seeds of countless future movements. Watching a simple green stem, we see this lesson in miniature, a concentrated expression of an ancient, unbroken narrative of life, one that whispers continuity and patience more than drama or urgency. As we reflect on the chapters that brought Us hear from the first breath of green in quiet seas to the silent intelligence of roots. From adaptation in extreme environments to the patient strategies of trees and leaves, we realize that every plant participates in this continuum. Each growth, each opening, each response to light, water, and community is a note in an endless, evolving symphony. Life's persistence is remarkable not because it overpowers, but because it endures, adjusts, and returns in measured cadence, over and over again, without fanfare, yet with infinite grace. In this repetition, there is both comfort and awe, a recognition that survival is less a battle and more a dance with the conditions of existence, repeated in countless forms, scaled across time and etched into every stem, leaf, and root. Thank you for joining this journey through green life, for letting your mind drift alongside roots and leaves, for pausing with me to witness the quiet strategies, the subtle intelligence, and the enduring poetry of plants. If you have felt a hint of wonder or calm, a sense of smallness yet belonging, consider sharing this journey and gently subscribe so that we may continue exploring the rhythms of the natural world together. Your presence here matters as part of this quiet observation, as part of the shared experience of curiosity, reflection, and serene discovery. So, as you lie in quiet, perhaps noticing a plant near your window or a tree outside, remember that its green stem, its leaves, its roots, and its blooms carry within them the echo of an ancient story, repeated endlessly, patiently, and with quiet wisdom. In watching, in imagining, and in being present, you touch a cycle that has endured across eons, that has survived extremes, innovations, and challenges, always returning to light, growth, and connection. The green that surrounds us is a reminder that life is patient, intelligent, and profoundly resilient, that even in stillness there is motion, and that in every beginning there is both history and promise. Good night.